I had never played a Wolfenstein game before last night, and boy, I've been missing out. Wolfenstein Old Blood was released in May of 2015 as a prequel to 2014's The New Order. Recently, I picked up both games as well as Wolfenstein 2 The New Colossus when they all went on sale on the PlayStation Store just a few weeks back, and I've been wanting to dive in. Last night, I started with Wolfenstein The Old Blood, and let me start with, I had a blast. Short, compact, and action-packed, The Old Blood was everything I expected it to be. Running around blasting Nazis was the complete experience anyone could possibly ask for. With an engaging story, insanely beautiful and immersing environments, I was locked in for the just under 5 hours it took me to complete this game. This is going to be a shorter review, and I'm not really going to dive too deeply into the story on this one. It's just going to be a brief little synopsis. Light spoilers ahead. This game's story felt like World War II James Bond meets John Wick. The very beginning of the game sees you and a buddy rolling up to the Castle Wolfenstein like it's your local McDonald's drive-thru, in quite a nice car, I will say. You play as BJ. This information is only news to people that waited until 2023 to experience such a cool franchise. BJ is an American operator working deep in enemy territory during the closing days of World War II. You and your buddy are infiltrating the castle when it quickly all goes south and you're captured by the Nazis. The first main baddie is this massive German brick who's a complete douche and has a nasty puppy. This is where you meet him. The next series of missions sees you trying to escape the castle, and it all culminates into a standoff in the tavern in the village outside of the fortress, and you have a pretty intense boss fight with the brick guy previously mentioned. Not only is he already the size of the Rock, but when you fight him in the boss fight, he's rocking power armor, dude. Yeah, you're pretty much fighting Hulkbuster. If you've seen Avengers Age of Ultron, that Iron Man suit, yeah, he's wearing like armor like that. It's intense. These missions were all done really well, and I had a lot of fun in the first half of the game, and I say that because the game is literally split into Part 1 and Part 2, about half and half both ways, each ending in a boss fight. After beating Mega German Hulkbuster Brickhouse, the chapter ends and you move on to Part 2, which took me completely by surprise, because again, light spoilers ahead, get this, Nazi zombies. Yep, that's right, zombies. It's not a criticism at all, because these guys are generally quite scary, especially when they do that insanely creepy quick shuffle at you. It's actually a little unnerving, like Nazi penguin zombies, dude. I was terrified. The next half of the game sees BJ in Wolfsburg after these documents that the Nazi leader Helga has. They include the location of a secret Nazi base, which I think is what the actual objective is, but BJ ends up stumbling on the secret stuff that she's been researching. She's searching for what King Otto, some ancient king, I believe he was around 1000 AD, I think. Ancient King, he was definitely messing around with some stuff he wasn't supposed to, and he had discovered or had something, and she's searching for whatever this secret was, and this is part of the cause of the zombies. You track her down to the catacombs below the village, and you fight your way through a bunch of Nazis and zombies, and run into Nazis fighting zombies, and you kill everybody. Right as you found Helga, you get captured for like the 7th time this game. That's an exaggeration, but yes, BJ seems to have quite the tendency to get himself captured. And you happen to have some documents that you had swiped off her desk earlier when you had been captured another time. And these documents allow Helga to unleash this monster, the final boss, which basically looked like a massive rancor that's blind. And after she does what all villains do that try to release monsters and try to control it, it throws her across the room predictably. I did, however, think it was going to eat her. Like, I was betting it was going to eat her, and it just picked her up and, like, chucked her across the room. Right after the monster, and I call it just a monster because that's literally how it's described in the game. Right after it chucks her across the room and betrays her predictably, BJ's able to break out of his chains, and you have to kill the monster as the final boss while also fighting the last of the Nazis that are showing up. After killing everybody, as BJ tends to do in most situations, you collect your documents and are evacuated by other intelligence operators. Short, simple, but fun and really engaging. I never felt like the story dragged or any of the missions were too repetitive. I found myself pretty immersed the entire time I was playing, and didn't really want to take a break or get up or take a sip of water, or I was pretty locked in. Now that we've got the story synopsis all finished up, I'd like to talk about some of the things I really enjoyed about this game. Early on, you encounter these mega Nazis that are wearing power armor that looks like, some kind of futuristic, like Fallout power armor, like Terminator armor, something crazy. And at first they're hooked up to the ceiling, just like bumper cars, as one of my mods in Twitch pointed out. And he was right. They literally had rails and were restricted to where they could go. But as the game progressed, you encountered mobile units with some kind of battery or power source on the back. Early on, you have to beat them by shutting down their power and popping their power source out. But later, when you encounter the battery units, you end up having to shoot the batteries until they're stunned, and then you can end up taking them down from there. I really liked this enemy type because they reminded me a lot of the Elite Trandoshans from Republic Commandos. A massive enemy with a minigun that will kill you pretty quickly if it spots you and you're not careful. But the reward for taking one down is you can use the minigun for yourself. These units were definitely a standout for me. I will also praise the weapon selection, although briefly, as this is a staple of the Wolfenstein series and is pretty expected out of these games. My favorite gun, no doubt, was the futuristic STG. Both dual-wielding and single-wielded, I loved using this weapon. I was really hoping the entire game there would be an MP40-like submachine gun, and I was slightly let down when I never found it. Another standout weapon was the sawed-off shotgun, and all I'll say about this piece is it lived up to the reputation of being an awesome choice of firearm in video games. Not to get too into the weed of things, this game has incredible weapon choices that are all a blast to use, and whatever your style is, they probably have you covered. Even though I prefer an assault rifle in most games, I do like to switch it up, and I went from quickscoping Nazis like I'm in FaZe Clan to shotgunning zombies like I'm playing Doom, and it was a great experience. I played this game on my PS5, although it is the PS4 version. I don't believe any of the Wolfenstein games have gotten a next-gen upgrade. This game still looks incredible though, and despite being 8 years old, it could easily pass for something that was released yesterday to somebody who didn't know any better. These environments in this game are also incredible looking. From Castle Wolfenstein itself to the tunnels below, and even the outside sections, the game looks incredible. And everywhere you look, there's something to see. Whether that's propaganda posters or futuristic Nazi tech laying around, I really like the game's overall aesthetic. Definitely a rock and roll World War II grungy shooter. I bet if you put on some rock music and gunned your way through some of these levels, it would make the experience just that much more awesome. That's another thing I'll give the game gas for, is the soundtrack does a great job, and it always felt tonally appropriate. Intense in intense moments and sad in sad moments, and I give them credit for a score that adds to the gameplay experience. It doesn't distract or take away from it as some games do. There's not a whole lot of interaction with other characters, but the few side characters you do encounter, such as Pepe the nurse and the guy in the tavern, are all pretty cool NPCs, and I was pretty sad when I had to put the nurse down after she became a zombie. Your operator buddy got smoked pretty early on, and the connection to him wasn't really there, but I definitely felt the connection to the nurse, and I thought it was one of the strongest relationships that was established in the game. In my opinion, even in the brief conversation, it's hinted at a past between her and BJ, and they were stationed at a point together at some other point. She flirts with him and tells you to make it back safe, and boy, did I definitely want to. In all honesty, I liked the middle of the game fight with the huge mech German more than the end fight with the monster, because you had a personal grudge with this German guy. You had seen him feed your buddy to his dog, and he had stabbed you in the leg and electrocuted you. Even though the monster was big and ugly, it didn't really do anything to BJ, so killing it seemed more like a save the world kind of act, and not as much as a personal grudge match. I grew up during the superhero era, so I'm pretty desensitized to the whole world stakes at this point, and definitely enjoy personal rivalries and personal stakes more than the kill the monster before it escapes and hurts everybody trope. I will, however, praise this game for being a shooter light on turret sections. I'm not a fan of this overused mechanic, and I know we're kind of randomly jumping from one thing to the next, but this is a quicker review. The Nazi zombies also a very used thing in video games, I'm not going to complain about here. Ever since Treyarch did the Nazi zombies in World at War, it seems like everyone's gotta do it. However, in Wolfenstein, the zombies not only act differently and appear differently, but they also fit the story Wolfenstein is trying to tell with this entry. So personally, I thought it was a very cool surprise when you go and try to assassinate the one guard and it turns out to be a zombie. I was so surprised and I was like, dude, what is that thing? And that's how you're introduced to the new threat. Two small things I would change about the game if I could that I think would make it a little bit better. I would add a small minimap on your heads-up display. I get the game's a pretty linear on-rail shooter, but just being able to see where you're at and where the general direction of the objective is without having to open a whole new screen is always a plus with me. And the second thing would be a pause when swapping weapons. It was just super stressful trying to change to the right gun while being shot at. Maybe I just need to get over myself and be faster, but I definitely had a lot of whoa, 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 chill, chill, chill moments. I think even maybe a time slow, not even necessarily a complete pause, just a slow would be better than no time lapse at all. I get it's more realistic for there not to be a pause, but at the same time, BJ's running around carrying thousands of rounds of ammunition and like a dozen weapons. You're already throwing realism completely out of the window. If you're a fan of history, science fiction, Captain America, Nazi zombies, or alternate historical timelines, or maybe just fun, laid-back shooters, I have to recommend Wolfenstein Old Blood. I haven't looked a lot at thoughts on this game because I really wanted to form my own, but I have seen enough to know that this game is somewhat mixed received within the Wolfenstein community, and maybe I'll feel differently after playing the other two games in the series. I say two because I'm not sure if I'm going to be checking out Youngblood given the co-op requirements, but as of right now, Old Blood being my only experience with Wolfenstein, I have to say I really enjoyed it. I give Wolfenstein Old Blood 8 out of 10 for what it is, a smaller prequel game that could be DLC, but was released independently. I had a blast playing it over on my Twitch. Twitch.tv/WildBigSkies if you don't want to miss any of the gameplay. I stream pretty much all the gaming that I do. Out of the linear shooters I've played, I rank Old Blood up there with some of my favorites. When it came down to the story and fun, I would definitely recommend this game, especially if you catch it for sale under $10 like I did. I appreciate it if you made it to this point in the video. If you did, comment pizza bites below so I know that you're a real one. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. This has been your boy Wild Big Skies, and I'm out. Peace.